Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. If you found yourself here, there may be a message for your healing journey, soul's evolution, transformation, and or simply information. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about childhood wounds and trauma. Maybe if you had any alcoholism growing up in your family that you knew about, and maybe you have some personality disorders that you dealt with, or maybe you have those such as yourself. You've acquired those symptoms, maybe abandonment issues or fear of intimacy. So, yes, those are all possible when you have parents or caregivers that were either enraged or have alcohol problems and or just personality disorders. Can you either acquire those or can you heal from those? Yes, you can heal from childhood trauma. Can you change the people that were in your life, or maybe they're passed over? Well, no, it was part of their journey, right? So the higher picture is that's how they were able to survive. Um, if you have alcoholism within your family and there was maybe a lot of abuse, you maybe have a lot of hurt and childhood trauma lying in your sacral chakra, your throat chakra. Children are seen in that hurt, but it's not possible to replace the childhood that we had or have. If it was part decent with people that you had in there to show you love, it's great. It's your rock, it's your oak tree, thank goodness. That was instilled within you, that safety mechanism when you were there. You knew in your brain that you were going to be safe. And then going home, you had to shift gears into knowing it was sort of rocky grounds, right? Like a war wound, going in or going home. And you never know with alcoholics. I grew up with a lot of stability, but then things were tumultuous between my parents, before my teenage years. And then we stayed with our grandparents for a while and of course moved on. But things were a little rocky. And then, of course, married an alcoholic and rocky. And then other relationships that were even worse, personality-wise, with addiction. So I understand the dynamic of unhealed wounds, childhood wounds, and trauma, and taking on other people's karma and or karmic roots from ancestors and moving it forward as a healer. So childhood trauma, yes, people are, if you're sure-footed in every situation, yes, you'll be able to stay grounded and walk the walk. But if you have addictive personalities or narcissistic personalities or people who have multiple personalities or multiple addictions, it's a loose cannon 24/7, 365. They can go from 0 to 100 in a second. So if people have, bipolar personality disorders, it's you're never going to be perfect or good enough for that person. It's just traumatic for you and the children and animals or whoever else. So the goal is to make sure you're safe so you can heal your trauma because a safe, sacred space is required for you to heal. If you don't feel safe, you're not going to open up safely to release the trauma, if that makes sense. And you have difficulty thinking about it. You can think yourself through it, but it won't release. Your mind is saying, let it go, it doesn't matter. But your whole body holds the story and it will continue to hold the story and wait. And if you have addictions, to medicate that, that's not great either. But if you're seeing a traditional therapist, a lot of times talk therapy can work. But I can tell you from personal experience, trauma, which lies deep in your body, and especially if you're intuitive, maybe you've taken on some of other people's trauma and you have it holding within you, or you've had deaths in your family and you had guilt, shame, fear, sorrow, and grief. So, childhood trauma, sexual violence, physical violence, mental abuse, neglect, it's all trauma based. It lies in your body, your energetic field, your body, mind, and soul, your meridians, your chakras, your tap points, every part of you. Which, if you've had any kind of sexual trauma, it lies within your sacral, and of course, you need to release that and heal those aspects. And those are from deep wounds within you. It can definitely cause pain in other areas of your life, or heart trauma, where you can feel a heart pain versus emotional crying. You might just have a pain there, or you want to dissipate it somewhere else. Or maybe I've seen a lot of people covered up with just eating and drinking or drinking. So, whatever the addictions are, it can be healed and addressed, but you have to be in a safe, sacred space with a gifted healer. It does matter because they hold you in safe, sacred space to heal that trauma. So when you do timeline trauma healing, you don't really have to say a whole lot, but there's tools that we have that can make you feel comfortable in a sacred space where we don't judge. We actually go back into the timeline of where the trauma lies, and we can gently assist it out through the bottom of your feet, your fingers, your chakras, your meridians. And it's a gentle movement, like a wave through your body. And it's sacred and it's very special. And most people I've worked with have a lot of tears that they have years. I'll find something lodged in a rib or in an ovary or maybe their hip or their knee, a big toe. It's like people put it in different places. I had a runner. She was extremely fit, but like anorexic fit, right? And that was the first thing we found is in her right foot and her big toe. She screamed and then asked, "What the hell did I take from her?" She actually felt like I took, you know, a massive organ out of her, but it was from childhood trauma of grieving loss of her father and then other things that have happened to her that she could keep it there. And release it from horrible, but instantaneously it was the tears that she wasn't able to cry. She was told, "Children don't cry, get over it." And she married somebody very military and did the same thing, didn't allow her to cry. So, can you imagine 40 years later crying for the first time and then everything else in between that unfolded? Cancer, losing other things, children, moving, divorce, remarried. And, she was very much a professional. But it was interesting what people won't release because they feel like they honor, something that was needing to let go. So at that point, her dad was able to heal on the other side as well and love and care for her in a different way. And she felt it. And we talked about all of those things and his messages to her. And it was profoundly moving. And right now I have goosebumps because I'm thinking about that session. And it was a couple sessions, but that was massive for her. And she used to literally just go run into the woods for 10 miles and come back and just literally fall. Her husband didn't have a clue what in the hell is the matter with you. You just beat yourself up. But um, she was running from the pain that never she could never run from. And she never felt good enough, wasn't perfect enough. She wasn't thin enough. She had to adjust her face and Botox and everything else in between. Finally, one day I said, "Are you done? Let's go have some cake. Would you like cheesecake?" And so we had some cheesecake. I said, "You're not allowed to run for 2 days, period. If I know you're running, then we got a problem. So, or else I'm going to go with you." Well, she didn't run, but yes, I did go with her. But we slowed down and we talked, and then we were out in the woods on a nice trail ride, and it was um, it was enlightening for her, and it was profoundly moving. So the point is, unpacking childhood pain and trauma is so important. And whenever you're ready, the teacher is there when the student is ready, right? And so if you are ready to heal, it's time. And even if you were ready 10 years ago and things happen and there's lots of excuses, it's time. I've had 80-year-olds on my table and they were brought in by their kids saying, "Fix mom." Well, it wasn't her at all. It was the kids. Like each one of you, 5 girls need some help. She's not your mom. They all had something they were mad at her about. When she died, it was the most beautiful revelation. Each one of them felt guilt, shame, fear, and trauma. She had a letter for each of them. And at the end of the day, they had no clue who she was. She was a beautiful soul who lived a hard life to take care of her kids. And it wasn't good enough. So for them, but then at the end of her life, she was able to see that her children loved her very much, and they were able to see that she loved them, and anybody who passed, I think they had lost a sister. That was the grief in the family, the white elephant or the elephant in the closet. They were angry as if she did that to them. That grief, sorrow, shame, fear resonated through their whole family for 40 years. And the end of mom's death, she was just a beautiful soul. She never said a word. She never talked back to them. She never tried to correct them. And at the end, everybody found peace at her funeral. I was blessed to be able to see a few words at her funeral, and it was profoundly moving for all of us. So, after surviving and taking care of a family, how many years later do we finally release the trauma of childhood wounds, or even her own wounds as a child, never having food, always giving to her children, putting food on the table? She never said anything. She was just happy to sew their clothes and give to them before she gave to herself. Selfless, right? And these children finally got it and they felt guilty. But the whole point is so they don't feel guilty for the rest of their life for making her feel guilty. We released it so they could all live and be happy in life. And that's the most important thing, releasing what no longer serves and understanding the truth and living with integrity, judging others before you know. How beautiful. She left in peace and gave them their peace. And that's the most important thing, right? Releasing trauma 80 years later so she could die in peace. And her children would stop being selfish and live in peace and find their joy. And she let them all stuff. And I told them they needed to display it with joy, pride. And if they couldn't, to give it away to somebody that would love it and appreciate it. And then they should go in peace and honor their mother. Maybe put some flowers at her gravesite once in a while, or talk to her. Put a nice picture of her and them up and honor her as she's lying in peace, which she so deserved. So I hope this helps today. Just remember to release your trauma that no longer serves and do it sooner than later. Don't harbor resentments and let go of what no longer serves because you can heal and find your peace. Remember, you matter, and so it is. Namaste.